Most people think intelligence is about knowing facts, solving problems, or sounding smart in a conversation. But there is another kind of intelligence. It does not show up on school tests. It does not need a diploma. And no, it probably will not help you win at Scrabble, unless your opponent is emotionally unstable and you know exactly when to play the word quartz. This intelligence is quieter. It is the ability to read people, control your reactions, protect your energy, and move through a world that does not always reward honesty, kindness, or effort. Some people call it social intelligence. Some call it emotional intelligence. But today, we are going deeper. This is strategic intelligence, not manipulation, not becoming cold, not turning into a Netflix villain with dramatic lighting and a suspicious chair. Strategic intelligence is the skill of understanding human behavior before it controls you. Because here is the uncomfortable truth. The world is not always fair. You can work hard and still be overlooked. You can be loyal and still be betrayed. You can be talented and still lose to someone who understands power better than you. By the end of this video, you will discover 8 traits that make a person harder to manipulate, harder to predict, and much harder to defeat. But the first trait is the one most people ruin within 5 minutes of meeting someone. Trait number 1. Controlled visibility. In 2006, researchers Janine Willis and Alexander Todorov found that people can form a first impression of someone's face in just 100 milliseconds. That is 1/10 of a second. Before you have even decided whether to say hello or do that awkward half-smile humans invented to survive elevators, someone's brain is already judging you. This matters because people do not only react to who you are, they react to what they think you are. Strategic people understand this. They do not reveal everything immediately. They do not explain every plan, every insecurity, every motivation, every dream, and every emotional side quest. They reveal what is useful, not because they are fake, but because they respect the value of information. In 1994, economist George Loewenstein introduced the information gap theory. Curiosity increases when people notice a gap between what they know and what they want to know. That means mystery is not just dramatic. It is psychological leverage. When you reveal everything, people stop wondering. When you reveal nothing, people stop trusting. But when you reveal just enough, people pay attention. And attention is power. But once people notice you, the next question is, can you adapt? Trait number 2, adaptive identity. You are not the exact same version of yourself with everyone. You do not speak to your boss the same way you speak to your best friend. You do not talk to your grandmother the same way you talk to someone who cuts you off in traffic. At least, hopefully not. Grandma has suffered enough. This is not hypocrisy. It is social calibration. In 1999, psychologists Tanya Chartrand and John Bargh described what they called the chameleon effect. Their research showed that people naturally and unconsciously mimic the posture, gestures, and behaviors of those around them. Why? Because adaptation creates connection. Strategic people do this consciously, but ethically. They listen for how someone thinks. If a person is analytical, they use facts. If a person is emotional, they acknowledge feelings. If a person is practical, they focus on results. If a person is visionary, they speak in possibilities. This is not changing your values. It is changing your delivery. Think of water. Put it in a glass. It takes the shape of the glass. Put it in a river. It moves with the current. But it is still water. That is adaptive identity. The strongest people are stable at the core and flexible at the surface. But there is a danger here. If you adapt too much, you disappear. And that brings us to the next trait. Trait number 3, emotional detachment. Detachment does not mean you do not care. It means you care without becoming controlled. In 1979, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky introduced prospect theory, showing that humans often feel losses more intensely than equivalent gains. In simple terms, losing $100 usually hurts more than winning $100 feels good. This is why fear of loss controls people so easily. People stay in toxic jobs because they fear losing stability. They stay in bad relationships because they fear being alone. They stay silent because they fear losing approval. Strategic intelligence begins when you stop making fear your manager. The person who can walk away has leverage. The person who needs approval has a leash. And this is not about being careless. It is about having options. When you are not desperate for one outcome, your brain gets clearer. You negotiate better. You communicate better. You stop reacting like every problem is a life or death emergency. In 1998, psychologist James Gross found that reappraisal, changing how you interpret a situation, can reduce emotional experience more effectively than simply suppressing your reaction. So the goal is not to pretend you are calm. The goal is to become calm before you act. Because once you master your reaction, you create the next trait. Trait number 4, silent leverage. Most people think power is loud. They imagine power as dominance, pressure, big speeches, and dramatic entrances. But real influence is often quieter. It is the pause before you answer, the option you do not announce, the confidence of not needing to prove yourself. In conversations, silence is powerful because most people cannot tolerate it. They rush to fill it. And when people rush to fill silence, they often reveal still more than they intended. Strategic people do not rush. They let the room breathe. Not every sentence needs an immediate response. Not every attack deserves a defense. Not every opinion deserves your energy. Sometimes the most powerful move is not speaking. When you react instantly, you give the other person access to your nervous system. But when you pause, you take back command. And this is where Rewire Your Brain becomes more than a channel name. It becomes a question. Are you training your mind to respond strategically, or are you letting the world press your buttons for free? But silence only works if you understand what people are really saying beneath their words. Trait number 5, psychological mirroring. People do not only want advice, they want to feel seen. In 2012, researchers Diana Tamir and Jason Mitchell found that humans spend around 30 to 40% of their speech talking about themselves. Their research also showed that self-disclosure activates brain regions associated with reward. In other words, talking about ourselves literally feels good to the brain. Shocking, I know. Humanity really said, what if dopamine but with personal stories? Strategic people understand this. They do not listen just to respond. They listen to identify the hidden need. When someone says, I hate my job, they may not only mean the job, they may mean, I feel invisible. When someone says, nobody listens to me, they may mean, I need respect. When someone gets angry, the visible emotion may be rage, but the hidden driver may be fear, shame, or insecurity. Psychological mirroring means reflecting the deeper message back to someone. You feel like your effort is not being recognized. You are not just tired, you are tired of carrying everything alone. You are angry because this crossed a boundary. When people feel understood, they lower their defenses. And when defenses go down, influence goes up. But influence without ethics becomes manipulation. That is why the next trait is essential. Trait number 6, ethical pragmatism. The world is not black and white. It is usually gray, expensive, and badly scheduled. Ethical pragmatism means you are not obsessed with looking nice. You are focused on producing the best outcome without violating your values. Sometimes kindness means telling the truth. Sometimes leadership means making an unpopular decision. Sometimes protecting the group means disappointing one person. This is uncomfortable because many people confuse being good with being liked. But those are not the same thing. A good leader does not always make people comfortable. A good friend does not always validate your excuses. A good decision does not always feel good in the moment. In 1999, Harvard professor Amy Edmondson introduced the concept of psychological safety in teams. Her work showed that effective teams are not teams where nobody makes mistakes. They are teams where people feel safe enough to report, discuss, and learn from mistakes. That requires truth, not cruelty. Truth. Strategic intelligence means you can make hard decisions without becoming hard-hearted. You can be compassionate and still have boundaries. You can be kind and still say no. You can understand someone's pain and still refuse to let them damage your life. And once you understand boundaries, you need the next trait. Trait number 7, digital and social restraint. We live in the age of overexposure. People share their meals, their workouts, their opinions, their breakups, their breakdowns, their healing journey, and occasionally a quote about privacy posted to 14,000 followers. But strategic people understand that every piece of information becomes part of your public pattern. Your posts, your comments, your emotional reactions, your online arguments, they all teach people how to read you. Controlled exposure is not about hiding. It is about filtering. Before you reveal something, ask, who needs to know this? What will this information change? Can this be used against me later? Am I sharing this from clarity or from emotion? That last question is brutal but useful, because many people do not share to communicate. They share to regulate their emotions. Strategic people pause before they publish themselves, because information revealed cannot be unrevealed. And finally, all of this leads to the most important trait. Trait number 8, outcome obsession. Most people want to win arguments. Strategic people want to win outcomes. That difference changes everything. If your goal is to protect a relationship, proving someone wrong be a terrible strategy. If your goal is to negotiate better terms, showing anger may weaken your position. If your goal is to grow, defending your ego may block the feedback you need. Outcome obsession means asking one question again and again. What result am I actually trying to create? In 2006, psychologists Peter Gollwitzer and Pascal Sheeran analyzed 94 independent tests on implementation intentions. The simple, if X happens, then I will do Y planning method. They found a medium to large positive effect on goal achievement. Why does this matter? Because strategic people do not rely only on motivation. They pre-decide their behavior. If I feel attacked, I will pause before answering. If someone pressures me, I will ask for time. If I feel the need to over-explain, I will give a shorter answer. If I am emotional, I will not make permanent decisions. That is real power. Not controlling other people. Controlling the version of yourself that shows up under pressure. So here's the challenge. For the next 7 days, choose one trait from this video. Just one. Controlled visibility, adaptive identity, emotional detachment, silent leverage, psychological mirroring, ethical pragmatism, social restraint, outcome obsession. Practice it in real life, not to become manipulative, not to dominate people, not to become the mysterious person in the corner wearing black and whispering about strategy. Practice it so you become harder to provoke, harder to use, and harder to derail. Because the highest form of intelligence is not knowing how to play people. It is knowing how not to be played. So tell me in the comments, which of these 8 traits do you need to develop first? And if this video helped you think differently about psychology, power, and self-control, subscribe for more. Until next time, stay calm, stay sharp, and use your intelligence for something bigger than your ego.